basically at this AEW media scrum, Tony Khan showed up like an hour into it. Mm-hmm. No wrestlers joined him. He hopped on there for like 30 minutes and he said absolutely nothing. And he actually sat down, and the first thing he did was basically tell the media what type of questions he expected from them. And I mean it. Like, we can pull up his whole little thing if you guys want to rip through it. But he basically told the media what he expects of them, like what type of questions he wants to be asked. And then he got in and got the out of there as fast as he could. And no real questions were asked whatsoever. They didn't, and there was nobody there asking about no Janelle. Like, if this was WWE, not to do the whataboutism or anything, but there'd be Janelle Grant questions, Vince McMahon questions, there'd be all that. But for Tony Khan, there's not one question posed to him. And he came in, so he showed up for like 15 minutes. Wow. And I'm going to show you guys exactly what he says when he comes in. He tells them, like, I expect questions, like just listen to this.
Without further ado, guys, please welcome in Tony Khan.
And look at, like, Renee Paquette looks disappointed, sad. There was rumors that people, like a bunch of security, had to break up another fight. We'll learn about that in a minute. I have an update on that, but she looks tired, burnt out. Tony didn't show up for like an hour. Like, listen, people were sitting on this stream for however long. What is this? 40 minutes before Tony shows up, and he gets the out of there. Wow. And like, so he didn't want to answer no lawsuit questions. And they all softballed him. So where's Thurston? Where's all you pussies going? Oh, it's because they put out the narrative. It's a frivolous lawsuit. So where are all you guys asking the question when you guys are asking Cody and Cena and all random people about Vince McMahon, people who worked with him for maybe a year? You know, you're asking about Janelle Grant and like that. And here it's like,
they've also put out the narrative that these are press conferences and journalists ask the questions even if they know they're not going to get an answer. And the thing about these press conferences that they're not really press conferences, but they're not really not either. It's like this very weird place, just like pro wrestling's in a very weird place where it's a little bit of both. But for those who have been critical of other journalists for wasting questions or other media personalities for wasting questions and sort of being more forgiving. Oh, that's a 12-year-old podcast, or they're just an aggregator or whatever. And it's like different rules for everybody, and it's strange. The whole thing is strange. Like, I wouldn't mind Tony laying down the law and everyone adhering to it if this was the same, if this was the industry standard. Like New Japan Pro Wrestling, they have their press conferences, but they're not really press conferences. It's right. Kayfabe, and everyone's playing along in kayfabe. The AEW ones have been a little bit of both, and the WWE ones, I mean, it's a new thing. They started them to give more content to Peacock, but it's a little kayfabe-y. The wrestlers are in kayfabe mostly, but Triple H is out there trying to do corporate stuff, and Cody is sort of doing a little bit of both. I mean, it is a weird and unfair form for anyone to try to navigate.
I agree with that. But ultimately, that's they didn't go, so the lawsuit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And listen to what Tony tells them right at the beginning. This is so important. He can listen. The media show up and they're trying to do a gotcha on Triple H and WWE every time.
Gotcha.
They show up here and Tony Khan tells them what to do, like little lapdogs. But you are correct. It's the same with the TV deal with AEW. It's so unique because it's not sports and it's not a scripted drama. It's a mix of both. But we'll get into that later. But yeah, just watch what he says.
Tony, I'm going to give the floor to you. Thank you for a great night and enjoy the press conference. Thank you guys so much for hanging tonight.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. It was a great night for the business of AEW, and there's a lot of great things happening in the business of AEW right now. It was a very violent and intense night. A lot of different things. Some great wrestling, some great fighting.
I just don't know how much I can show without them trying to Don Stevens me.
Some great rivalries and a lot of things to keep an eye on going into Wednesday's AEW Dynamite in Lexington, Kentucky on TBS. I would love to take your questions. Some of the things as far as the status of some of the wrestlers, we're still checking, and it was a really, really intense night for a lot of reasons, but I thought it was a huge success for the company in many ways. We had a great sellout crowd tonight here at the Now Arena, where we've had so many great shows over the years. I think it was significantly up over last year's All Out on pay-per-view, which is great. And I feel really, really strong about.
It's funny because when Triple H comes out to do these, he goes, he says, he just runs down actual numbers and stats and then kind of gives his opinion on the card. Tony comes out and he just goes like, I think, you know, if you think about it, maybe this is like this. Like he's just babbling nonsense. It's so funny.
Yeah.
About the future of the company and our media rights. And that's kind of where I'd imagine a lot of the questions are going to be. And that's probably where I would keep some of the focus on some of the questions, because it's such a great time for the AEW business. And I'd love to talk to you all about it now.
He goes, that's what he goes, I would probably keep my focus on the TV deal talk, which like makes me think they have a deal worked out here. Sure. And then I read something today as well, where it's like WBD is willing to like, some AEW will stay with WBD, but some of it will get shopped around other places. And that just makes me think you're right, Dose. And you've been right about like, or I believe you say this, like that they own a chunk of it possibly. And like, they're just trying to recoup money. You were the one who said that, right?
I mean, it's not my theory; it's other people's theory. But I mean, one thing about me is I'm intellectually flexible. So it's like unlike people in the IWC who are like didactic and don't think that anything changes from one day to the next, or 1 week or 1 month to the next. I know that things are fluid. So if Warner Bros. Discovery does own a piece of AEW, they want it to make as much money as possible. And if they're not going to overpay for it, because that would be a violation to their own shareholders, then why not allow it to have more streams of income? Or maybe they didn't want to pay so much for so many shows. They felt like they could use the time better. But yeah, I mean, there's room for everything. But there are people who are sure that the WBD has equity in the company. I'm not so sure. I mean, they're starting to convince me, but I always thought that they got a percentage of revenue from the pay-per-views, which is why they were so gung-ho about AEW doing like Peacock, like doing like WWE, one pay-per-view per month. Yeah. You know, because the pay-per-views were a profit division. If the company had divisions, that would be their profit division.
Right. And yeah, so they just give him softball questions the whole time. And then Tony Khan goes on to give this analogy about how, I don't know exactly where it is, but he basically what he does is he compares himself to the AFL, and he compares WWE to the NFL. And then he starts fantasizing about like back when they merged into one super conglomerate to make the Super Bowl the greatest league on earth.
So he's talking about the old AFL, the one that merged with Super Bowl one in like 1973 or whatever.
Yeah, I'll play it, but I stirred up so much this morning because I tweeted out, I go, Tony Khan admitted his dream at the AEW All Out press conference. He wants to be the AFL to WWE's NFL and eventually merge together. He wants a job in WWE. He wants to be WWE. Now, I'm obviously being funny. A, like I'm clearly being funny. But B, that is sort of what he does. He like fantasizes, and everybody said it. Like Tony just, if WWE's like, hey, we'll buy AEW and we'll give you a job in creative here. You'll be he would do that in a heartbeat. Like he just wants to be in WWE. He wants to be acknowledged by WWE. He wants to be considered on the same level or the same plateau as them. He wants to be able to say he competes with them. He wants to all of that. Like you know that. He just wishes he could be in WWE himself. I believe that if they like back in the day, I know people who are like, yeah, dude, I've seen him like at a bunch of events, like he go to every SummerSlam, every WrestleMania. And I think he wants to be a part of WWE deep down inside, and that's why he does old WWE. Like, I've covered it extensively. You know, the camera shots, instead of being innovative when Kevin Dunn was still in WWE, what is AEW doing? They're copying old WWE, and then Kevin Dunn leaves, and then AEW's copying like Kevin Dunn WWE with all the camera cuts, and they're always like playing catch up, and they're always just, you can tell, man, he changed the ropes white and all this sort of stuff. Like, I know why that is. It's because if people are flipping channels, they see the white ropes, they might think it's WWE, you know? Like, I know why he's doing that, just from like a TV aspect and everything. But so he didn't fully admit what I said. I was trolling. I'm also just a jester making fun of the Royals, but it triggered a lot of people, no less. A lot of people were like, oh, he didn't say that, man. And he didn't specifically say that. And here's the tweet that I posted here. But we'll go back to this, and here I want to just play the clip. I don't know exactly where it is, but he starts babbling about it, and he just starts like going off on this fantasy where he's fantasizing about when the NFL and the AFL merged, after comparing himself to AFL and comparing WWE to NFL or whatever. I don't know. It's the cutest, most adorable thing ever.
I think it's something that the company has gotten better and better about. Fantastic show tonight. And I felt really
thing since All In. I was wondering if there's any type of update on her.
well. It was
Oh yeah, he gets asked about Britt Baker, and they're like, "Is there any update on her?" And he's like, "Well, she was on All In, and tonight was a great show." You know, he just like moved on.
Who's Britt Baker?
Yeah, persona non grata, dude.
I don't know who you're talking about. Who is this person?
Gates, and we've become an international success story, and we're only continuing to build our worldwide business. I think it's an unprecedented success story. As a historian of sports, and as I'm getting ready for NFL kickoff and getting ready to head down to Miami for the Jaguars kicking off hours from now, I have to say that the last time that a challenger sports league in this continent had the kind of market share, the percentage of the market that AEW has in their industry would be the AFL. And the AFL was a great sports league. They had great stars. The NFL is the biggest media enterprise in the world, and the AFL came in and they got real.
So are you guys following? He just compared himself to the AFL and asked about, so he was asked about the success of AEW. So he says, yeah, he starts it off. I think I skipped over it, but he goes, yes, we are the number 2 in the world, and we have the second most market share. And like, we are like the AFL, da 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 da. So that means that, and then he goes on to go, NFL's the biggest in the world. So clearly he's talking about WWE, because who has the largest market share? It's clearly WWE. So like, people get so triggered by me saying this, but follow along here. Like, I psychoanalyze people. That's what I do. I'm a writer, man. I study people. I know what this guy's thinking in his head. Look at him. He's not even looking at her anymore. He's looking off into the distance, and watch, he's going to start daydreaming about how AFL and NFL merged. And I'm sitting here going, and it's just like when he gets asked, like, oh, would you do a super show with WWE? And Tony Khan's like, oh yeah, that would be great. We'd do it. It'd be amazing. Like, he just wants to be acknowledged by WWE. That's all it is. Man, the original name for AEW was going to be called WEW. Literally, that was going to be the original name, bro. So, like, this is what I mean.
Narcissists are always this way. I mean, Vince McMahon always wanted to get out of wrestling and turn it into an entertainment conglomerate. He always wanted to be respected by Wall Street, not just the street.
Yes.
Donald Trump, his whole thing is that the real rich people never respected me. They thought I was like, I wasn't the right kind of rich or whatever. And he, and now, then he became president. And he's going to, might become president again. And Tony Khan, he wants to, he's got a little bit of a daddy complex, but also, you're right. He wants to be, I don't know if he wants to be WWE or not, but he but I think he
that's
wants
what it
to
is.
be. Well, I know. Yeah, I mean, you've said, but I think that at the very least, everyone can acknowledge he wants for AEW to be viewed at least as an equivalent to WWE and become a household name and say, look, I've made it. I've made it. And he's always trying to say, he's made certain things in history, and some of them are true, and some of them are sort of his own spin on things. I mean, it is the number 2 brand, but I mean, I don't know that,
of course.
Yeah, I don't know that any other challenger brand forget about whether it's sports or not, but if any other challenger brand in wrestling has ever started out with somebody who's worth between $1 and $2 billion with a family that's worth another 11 to 14 billion dollars and has assets to borrow upon and get credit, but that nevertheless he is what he is and who he is. But yeah, he definitely wants the acceptance and the acclaim and he wants to get lauded by peers who he wants to be peers in wrestling, because most of the old heads in wrestling don't really seem to respect him very much.
Exactly, dude. And to what you said, you brought up a good point there about okay, Vince, he was in sports and entertainment, but he sort of wanted to be in real sports and real entertainment. Not that wrestling isn't real entertainment, but you know what I mean? Like, he wanted, like you said, he wanted to be in the XFL and in like the movies, WWE studios, and that, like, he wanted to be taken serious. I think with Tony Khan, it's that same thing, but what it is like, he's involved in super indie wrestling and he wants to be involved in like big boy wrestling. That's what it is for him. You know what I mean? He wants to be involved in that WWE big boy wrestling. And I think he'd sell this. I think one day, if we do see Tony sell AEW, it will be to WWE, where he gets a job or something with them, or like he becomes like some sort of thing in WWE. That's the only way he'd ever sell the company to them or let AEW go, is if WWE is like, yeah, and you can be one of us now. Otherwise, I don't think he'll ever let this thing go. Like CM Punk, he'll just dump that. Like you said, he's worth $2 billion, and his dad, let's say his dad passes. Don't wish that, but like, there you go. Tony's got $11 billion in the bank right there, or whatever, So it's not like AEW's going anywhere anytime soon. So, yeah, but we'll continue along. Here's his fantasy mark booking here about himself and WWE.
Real market share, and of course, we all know they merged. It created the Super Bowl, the greatest game, the greatest entertainment property, and together the NFC and the AFC formed the NFL, the greatest sport, the greatest media enterprise, and the greatest marketing machine in the world.
So what he just did was say, yeah, like one day, in order to become the biggest in the world, the AFC and the NFC had to merge to the NFL. So he's just sitting there saying, like, listen, I'm telling you right now, he's just babbling, and he's like fantasizing about merging WWE with AEW to make it the biggest in the world, because there's no other way AEW could do that, could become the biggest, unless they were bought by WWE. So...
And this is not to change your greater point, but I'm not, it really doesn't matter, but I'm not even sure that he's factually correct. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't know which is the oldest boxing federation, but I'm not sure. I mean, for a while there, I mean, I'm a little bit older than you, probably a lot older than you, but there was the WBA, the WBC, and the IBF. And it was, it was a big deal because at some point they were unified, and then it was a big deal because they weren't. And then Mike Tyson unified them all. And I think they've been unified basically ever since.
Well, they added more too. There's like the ring heavyweight title and the WBO, and then they keep adding them too. So
yeah, but the point being is, I'm not sure which one was first, but there was a certain point where all of them were looked at as almost co-equals.
Yep. Or like WCW, WWE, they were neck and neck, dude. They were definitely equal at one point.
Or WWF with NWA, and there was a time where AWA and or WCW were, considered 3 and 4, and they weren't so far apart. But NWA and WWF for a while were certainly up there geographically. I mean, depending if you were in the South, NWA was the if you were in the Northeast, I mean, WWF was, but in the Midwest, that's where Jesse Ventura was. That's where Hulk Hogan was. So, and Harley Race was going back and forth, and Jerry the King Lawler going up and down. So, I mean, I'm not even sure he's factually correct. Again, it's not important to your bigger point, though.
Yeah.
We've been able to come in and do. It's very true to our sport. You can tell, I think, that the people who work here really love professional wrestling. It's something we really encourage, no matter what you do, whether you're a wrestler or whether you work in the production truck, or whether you work around the ring, whatever you do in AEW.
Yeah, we get the gist of it. So yeah, that's that's pretty much Tony Khan's little blibber blabber. That was all the keynotes. He got the out of there real toot sweet. And then he never was asked anything real about this lawsuit situation.